3 determined primary maths teachers from around the country head for Ofsted HQ. They've got 25 years of teaching experience between them and a whole lot of questions about the business of inspections. Time to turn the tables on top maths inspector Lynn Churchman.
They understand what they're doing, they'll be able to apply it.
The first issue under inspection is self-evaluation.
There was at one point you would go in everybody's classroom and look at everybody's numeracy. Is that still going to be the case, or...?
No. In a nutshell, no.
Right.
The sharper, shorter, more focused inspections are really about ensuring that the school has processes and systems in place to keep its own evaluation and own inspection, if you like, running smoothly and knowing when it's got weaknesses that need addressing. We're trying to convince ourselves, really, that your assessment of where the strengths and weaknesses are and what things need to be improved is an accurate assessment, and that you've got it under control.
Would you be monitoring alongside us, or would we need to keep an evidence base of work that goes on in classrooms?
Well, in a sense, you'd need to keep an evidence base for yourselves as much as anything. Going back to the self-evaluation is about you knowing where things are at. But certainly in the new inspection arrangements, joint observation and visiting classrooms with senior managers and curriculum leaders is part of the new relationship, rather than inspection being done unto you, so to speak, which
so
some people
is it
felt.
more likely that you'd say, look, you come through very strongly in your self-evaluation that maths is a real strength. Can we go and see a couple of lessons where you think teachers are or are you more likely to say coming through as a kind of area for development is the notion of speaking and listening in math lessons? Can I go and agree with you that that's an area for development?
It's probably a mix of both, isn't it? It's using you leading, really, on where your process is and how you know about the strengths and weaknesses of self-evaluation.
So there's a culture change, isn't there? Because instead of this hysterical build-up to the inspector calling, there's got to be a lot more openness, probably, and trust of the senior leadership team.
Yeah.
What if your school doesn't have the maths as a priority? If maths is seen as being, OK, this is going along quite nicely, let's do writing, then your maths coordinator's got quite a challenge.
Yeah. If you're still implementing your monitoring plan, you've still got a grip on what's happening and what the impact of teaching and learning is in school, and the
important bit of that is not that you don't only monitor the things that are the focus areas that year. Your maths coordinator should be monitoring all the time.
I think monitoring, though, is one of the scariest words in primary schools, certainly, because inherent it is a notion of, clipboards, time, judgment. Realistically, in a one-form entry primary, trying to cover PPA time, you talk about days out to do those things. I'm not in a position to release people for days to do that. I would have thought 3 observations a year is enough, but I'm kind of getting slightly anxious here that it's got to be kind of more than that. So what else counts as good monitoring apart from
some of the sorts of things you've already described, really.
And what evidence of that? Because this could just turn into a paper mountain.
The maths coordinator monitoring the planning, and a lot of the joint planning that goes on is in itself part of a sort of monitoring and moderation exercise, isn't it?
But when you came in, for a day or for 2 days, would we have had to have minutes of a planning meeting? I mean, I hope there's a kind of, because all the things going on in my school, and the level of so much after school, before school, PPA time going into all that happens, but I don't know whether we're the best at writing it all down. And yet I don't want that to be a judgment against us.
At the end of the day, it's about the quality of the learning experience for the children in the classroom, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as long as teachers are planning appropriately for children's progression, and that the maths coordinator has sort of got their eye on the ball, in a sense, of what the planning's looking like and whether there is progression built in, and whether children are being given the appropriate opportunities to do the sort of things you described before, things like reasoning and justifying and explaining. You're monitoring your teachers' plans, you actually check that those things are built in, don't you?
I think what's useful in a small school is actually getting in there at the level of planning, not monitoring planning after it's been done. Well, because you become that second person to plan with them.
And so unit plans, on the one hand, were a great thing and everybody welcomed them with open arms, but certainly when I look at them, there's no differentiation. They're written for a school, not all the different sorts of schools that they're on, not my school. Presumably we all want to see plans scribbled on, little notey things, post-its,
I think
crossings out.
That was always said, wasn't it, that these unit plans were to be annotated and to be somewhere to work from and just ideas from, if nothing else. And we do use unit plans, but we've also got a lot of other resources that we can pick from, and that was a good idea, and why don't you try this, all those kind of things.
We certainly observe lessons where it's quite clear that they're following a unit plan, but actually the plan doesn't match the class.
No.
So it's got to be personalised,
evidence,
whether it's post-its or annotations, or quite a few schools do it electronically now. They take the plan down as it is and adapt it electronically.
One thing that we developed was a portfolio. So we've got something there to show teachers what it might look like to do open-ended work at different levels. But
and
also,
that's the important thing, isn't it? The portfolio is not there to keep inspectors quiet, so to speak. It's there as a professional development tool, really, to get a sense of what is an appropriate expectation for year 1 on this particular investigation, or year 4.
Yes, because anything involving algebra, everybody seemed to think that no matter what year group they'd got, they had to get to some sort of generalisation at the end of it. And we spent a long time unpicking that sort of thing.
Though it's important that we can, prove, obviously we're accountable and we need to be able to prove that, but it needs to be for the good of us, the staff working in school and the children who are in school.
Absolutely. And you need to be confident that you are monitoring children's progress, that they are progressing appropriately term on term, year on year, because you're not going to get them to where you want them to be by the end of year 6 unless by the end of reception they've got to where you want them to be, and so on.
I think in our school there's some really excellent maths lessons going on. What would you be saying is excellence in maths teaching rather than just plain good?
When lessons are really shift to outstanding or excellent, it's often to do with the extent of engagement of the children. And in one sense you see a switch where the children are doing the work and the teacher's sort of orchestrating it, but they're not doing the actual mathematising or the actual thinking for the kids. They're creating the situation where the children are doing the thinking.
I would say at the moment in my school, and I think many others, the thing that divides the highest attainers and the lowest attainers is their ability to use language in math lessons. Where they lose marks, if you like, if you look include it, the analysis of SATs is in the reasoning questions, is in the explain your answer questions, is in the why couldn't it be, or those they just can't do.
And it's building those sorts of things routinely into lessons, whatever topic you're working on, whatever unit of work it is, that you've got reasoning and thinking and generalising and explaining as part and parcel of the learning of all of the mathematics.
It's also about asking the right questions, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And it's not as simple as open questions, closed questions.
No,
There's,
it's not.
It's instinctive to some teachers. Other people say, how do you move a whole staff into more probing questions?
Sharing of the good practice. But the key for me is finding the sorts of tasks to give to children that enable them, or that make it such that they have to think and reason. Because if they're given an exercise that's a consolidation exercise, fine, there is a place for consolidation a lot of the time, but if that's what they do all the time, they don't get a chance to think, reason, explain, and they don't start to believe that there is a reason to search for understanding. Because if they understand it, if they understand what they're doing, they'll be able to apply it.
We did a year's worth of looking at investigation and systematic recording, and then went through our Key Stage 1 maths papers looking for where children had used it, and they'd used it really effectively.
I think for high attainers, I think that kind of reasoning and using applying comes very naturally, and it comes actually as a teacher, because you can pull secondary school stuff. Our challenge is trying to find activities that really low attaining, bilingual, whatever, children who haven't got that comfy ease with speaking and listening, where they can develop them. Because I'm convinced getting them comfy with talking maths is going to make the difference, not just more basic skills.
Part of it is confidence, isn't it?
Yep. So how do you get the confidence? Is that just...
We've taken a whole school approach to word problem solving and investigations. We've kept the two separate.
Yeah, because word problems aren't the same as investigations, are they?
No, and the word problems, we have a display running through the school that people teach to. So if they come round in their units to word problems, they actually take a part of the display. So it might be drawing pictures, or it might be acting out a problem, it might be finding another strategy for solving it, or seeing if an answer makes sense. And on the investigations, we do whole school. So I might introduce it at a staff meeting, and then everybody takes it away and see it. And has
from reception to year 6?
From nursery to year 6.
The same problem?
Yes. Yes.
But manifest in different ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things we're noticing is that the girls have all the basic skills, and they'll make their little list of prime numbers before they start, but the boys have gone, it's got to be 17. And we're finding quite a gender issue. I don't know if that's borne out nationally.
Yes, it is. If you take boys and girls that achieve the same levels at the end of Key Stage 1 and look at them 4 years later, more boys move to level 4 and level 5 than girls. And I think it's really hard for teachers to keep their eye on that, because one of the issues about girls being systematic and going step by step, or any learner being very systematic, if they've got a number of questions to do and the most interesting ones are at the end, they don't get to the end. They don't get to the more interesting ones or the ones that make them think.
So you've got to structure it better, haven't you?
And some of that management might be about managing groups, so particularly putting, combinations of boys and girls together, or maybe single-sex groups sometimes, so that you actually create a situation where girls will take more risks in a given context than they might do in the whole group situation.
Do you feel we've begun to resolve the issue, the perennial problem about lack of subject specialists?
What we're looking for on inspection is that the school's aware of any concerns, lack of confidence, lack of subject knowledge, and is supporting that teacher, putting things in place. And there are all sorts of strategies for that, from courses to working alongside people to the maths coordinator, being a sort of mentor. So I'm not sure that the issue is any different than it was in the old inspection regime, and our evidence says that compared to, say, 5 or 6 years ago, there are fewer teachers for whom subject knowledge is an issue, but there still are some.
Yeah, nobody's working next to you to say
no one's going to tell us, is it?
No, to set your levels, because you can go in as a maths coordinator and not be very good at it, and think that you are, and people who are teaching very well because they don't teach the way that you want them to.
Yeah, our link inspector comes in, and according to what our development plan focuses, she just joint observations with me, and she very much does a kind of Ofsted judgment perhaps, but I do miss having that specialist.
But you're a head that is a maths coordinator, aren't you?
Yeah.
I wonder what it would be like if you're a maths coordinator that wasn't a head or a deputy in that sense. Going in and saying that was brilliant, did you see that, and why that was good, which is something you get from human contact. You can't pick it up from reading a report or from reading a book.
I mean, the courses that aren't around as much for my staff, but when they were around, when I sent staff on numeracy courses, they were the best one. They always came back really fired up, really enthusiastic, loads of ideas. Let's go and try this. There's some ways I'd like that individual specialised support back.
And our evidence is very much that there are patches across the country where the support is shifting to a more generic sort of support, and I think we need to be really careful, because I think subject leadership at LEA level is as crucial as it ever was.
Yes.
Maintaining improving standards in mathematics, and our reports at the moment show that that's plateauing. If it is plateauing, how do you get off the plateau? And it is about people coming back from courses or having consultant support in school at a very sort of detailed subject level, and gets people fired up and enthusiastic, because that gives you the next lift.
Right.
And also spending time with people doing the same job as you, having a chance to discuss. This is what we're talking about, the children discussing, not we're discussing. What I've got this problem. What have you done about it?
So the subject coordinator networks are still very important. The coordinators working together on common issues within the LEA, being supported by somebody from the LEA that can work at a subject level and on subject pedagogy with you, still remains crucial.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.